Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mok-yeon. The South Korean government says it's aiming to restart dialogue with North Korea by 2026, laying out a vision for peaceful coexistence backed by stronger coordination with surrounding powers. But recent developments raise new questions as China's latest white paper quietly drops its usual stance on denuclearization, and the Trump administration's national security strategy doesn't mention North Korea at all. Pyongyang is expanding ties with Russia. Kim Jong-un's daughter is taking on a more public role, and two major party meetings are just approaching. Now, as the landscape shifts, so do the calculations for both diplomacy and deterrence. For a deeper discussion on the latest situation, we are joined in the studio by Go Myong-hyun, Senior Research Fellow at the Institute for National Security Strategy. Good to see you, Dr. Go.
Good to see you.
And also joining us is Mark Barry, Associate Editor Emeritus at the International Journal on World Peace. Good to see you, Dr. Barry.
Yes, glad to be back.
So let's start right away with Dr. Go. So like I've said, the presidential office is looking forward to reaching out and resuming talks with North Korea by next year, of course with the help of other countries as well. What kind of specific steps do you think could actually get the two Koreas to talk again?
Well, I think the expression of a dialogue is really an expression of principle. I think all South Korean administrations of the past have expressed the same intention about engaging North Korea in dialogue, peaceful coexistence as well. But I think it's noteworthy how the government clarified what the process will be. And I think it's important to pay attention to what the National Security Advisor, Ri Sung-nak, said the other day during the press conference. I think Mr. Ri clarified that this peaceful coexistence in the process is going to be a little bit different from the President Moon Jae-in's administration's the Korean Peninsula peace process. What he means by this is that he really highlighted the importance of engaging North Korea in conjunction with the neighbors, the allies of the South Korea, especially the United States. We have to remember that President Lee, when he visited Washington in September, he characterized the coordination about North Korea policy between Washington and Seoul as being United States being the peacemaker and South Korea being the pacemaker. And Mr. Wee reiterated this role, divisional role between the two countries. So I think what Mr. Wee is trying to say is that there's going to be engagement, there's going to be outreach to North Korea, but unlike in the previous examples, that this is not going to take place as a separate effort from our alliance with the United States. So in that sense, it's a very conservative approach towards North Korea. So I don't think the government is going to say essentially engage in activities or action that could undermine the alliance with the United States. And I think in this context, Mr. Wee said that there will be no change to the scheduled joint military drills between South Korea and the United States next year.
So would it be in accordance with Washington?
Exactly.
But on that, Dr. Barry, I recall previously you've mentioned that it's really hard to predict when the talks will actually resume, and that there's possibility for Washington to, engage in dialogue first before South Korea does. Do you still share that view, or if so, when might that actually happen?
It just occurred to me, if Kim Jong-un would create the Pyongyang Peace Prize made in gold and say, President Trump, come and meet me in Pyongyang and I'll give this to you, that might help. And I'm almost half serious about it, given how the FIFA gave such a gift to President Trump at the White House the other day. But, if we look back on late October, it kind of makes sense why there was not a meeting. And I think it all boiled down to the fact that while President Xi was in South Korea, nothing could upstage his presence there. And I think President Trump was quite sensitive to that, and certainly Kim Jong-un was quite sensitive to that. But, of course, there are other reasons. I think that, yes, there's the Party Congress that North Korea will likely have take place in February. and that generally sets the direction for not only the rest of 2026, but for possibly the next several years. And of course, if President Lee of South Korea can somehow meet with President Xi in the first few months of next year, that would be an important stepping stone. But ultimately, everyone's saying that the next opportunity when physically President Trump will be in the region is when he makes his state visit sometime in April to Beijing to meet with President Xi, and he can meet with Kim Jong-un on the way back home, whether it be in Pyongyang, whether it be in Guam, as some people are suggesting, or as I've suggested in a previous program, even in Honolulu at a secure U.S. Air Force base. But at the same time, there's many other things going on, and it may not be, from Kim's point of view, in his interest, in North Korea's interest, to take any action at this point and just simply to wait out until there's a certain degree of capitulation on the part of the United States and on the part of South Korea to the terms that he believes are more preferable.
Mm-hmm. So we're really seeing China's role grow and grow lately. But one thing notable lately was that Beijing left out its usual support for denuclearization in its recent defense white paper. Dr. Go, how do you read into this?
Well, I think there's a tendency to play down what the Chinese have omitted in this non-proliferation paper. Well, it's the first paper that came out in 19 years. So things have changed a great deal since then. North Korea is clearly much more capable and in terms of nuclear weapons and so forth than when it started out 2 decades ago. So some people say this is a natural acknowledgement of the reality on the ground. But I think it's important that this paper came out this year, and then one of the major events that took place in Beijing in terms of North Korea-China relations was Kim Jong-un's visit to Beijing for the occasion of the Victory Day celebration in September. And I think it was noteworthy event, not just because Kim Jong-un was standing shoulder to shoulder with Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin, but also because North Korea and China essentially, in a way, accepted North Korea's rhetoric of the new Cold War and the bloc formation confrontation between North Korea, China, Russia on one hand, and the United States, Korea, and Japan on the other. And this acceptance that China has been very critical of shows that I think China is willing to consider North Korea to be a player now, a strategic player, and a player that has nuclear weapons. And in that sense, I think it's not just about the tacit acceptance or acknowledgement of the reality on the ground, but also the possible empowerment of North Korea going down the road. So we should really watch carefully what China's action will be in the next stage, because I think that's going to show more about the future Chinese intentions regarding North Korea.
Mm-hmm. It definitely shows how North Korea's position has changed over the years. Now, also worth noting was North Korea not being mentioned at all in Trump's new NSS. That's quite unusual since Pyongyang has always been called a major threat over there. Dr. Barry, do you think this signals U.S. disinterest or quite lead up to talks?
Well, I think that, first of all, in many ways, these national security strategy reports are kind of like, a corporation's annual report for stockholders. It's to kind of thump up, what we're all about and what we hope to achieve and so forth. And boy, if you're European, it's a very offensive document. But for and also it treated with kid gloves Russia and to a lesser extent China. And as you said, it did not mention North Korea, which, probably is a way of saying we don't want to say anything too downtrodden that would make Kim feel that the U.S. has not changed. But frankly, any real change in U.S. policy will only come from President Trump, and it will probably appear first on Truth Social. At the same time, interim U.S. Ambassador Kevin Kim has said that denuclearization is still the policy. And he is insisting on underscoring that even today in his meetings with foreign ministry officials. So that is the policy. And as I've said on previous occasions, in many ways, the real policy appears to still be the Biden policy. But just the same, it's an interesting document to give the flavor of what is in the minds of the Trump administration. I don't even necessarily think it's in the mind of President Trump, who basically sees the world in terms of business opportunities, which is disguised as diplomacy. And I think that's what we're seeing in Ukraine, to a certain extent with Middle Eastern countries, and to a certain extent with China as well. But at the same time, he won't be there forever, and people will succeed President Trump. And if they happen to be Republican, whether it be Vance, Rubio, or anyone else, the items that are in this document may have a much longer shelf life than we think. So it's anyone's guess, but these documents have been coming out since 1987. They had a good reason to come out under President Reagan because there were huge changes happening in the Soviet Union, and a number of them came out up through the early years of the Clinton administration, but much less so in more recent years. But this is the 18th iteration of the national security strategy, and it's a really interesting one.
Right, definitely. Since superpowers like the U.S. and China are also being involved, so we are going to keep close tabs on their latest movements moving forward. But what about for South Korea, Dr. Barry? What more do you think South Korea can be doing to push for a nuclear-free peninsula?
Well, obviously, from what Kevin Kim apparently said today, from what I just read, the United States is not too happy with any use of terminology other than denuclearization. The idea of a nuclear-free peninsula has all sorts of connotations that at least the State Department doesn't like. But again, where is the North Korea policy on the part of the United States? It's not coming from the White House, where Marco Rubio spends most of his time, and is not really coming from the East Asia and Pacific Affairs Bureau in the State Department so much. It's just sort of a little of this, a little of that, and Pete Hegseth is thumping about what a great ally South Korea is, and it's going to be rewarded for being such a good partner. There's all sorts of implications to that, but if you're North Korea, you're basically looking at South Korea and saying, you know, no matter who was president, had Moon Jae-in been succeeded by someone from his own party rather than President Yoon, and regardless of what party is in power in the office of the president, North Korea seems to have made a decision to say the heck with the South Koreans. They're the 800-pound gorilla in Northeast Asia, outside of China, and we really are better off not dealing with them at this point. And hence you see this incredibly close relationship with Russia, which will be only as good as until Putin is in so much trouble domestically, particularly if he has to call up a conscription by April to continue to fight in the war in Ukraine, and then find out that the North Koreans will be taken for a ride, and Kim Jong-un will be getting the short end of the stick. But that's the decision that he's made on South Korea right now, and I just don't see much change or anything that South Korea can really do on its own other than to say the right things.
Mm-hmm. So we'll really have to look out for the moves of our neighboring countries. And speaking of regional powers, Dr. Go, the NSS hints that the U.S. actually wants South Korea being more involved in deterring China from invading Taiwan. At this point, how do you think Seoul can shape its security and foreign policy in this growing rivalry between the two superpowers?
Well, I think for South Korea, the equation is quite complex because the new NSS implies that there's going to be changes to the nature of the alliance between South Korea and the United States, because so far, up to now, the alliance that we have with the United States is mainly, actually, most exclusively about deterring North Korea from attacking the South. Now the NSS is hinting that there's going to be change to that security architecture that we are so used to. So it really imposes a dilemma on South Korea because, not so much about the fact that South Korea could be enmeshed in a potential conflict between United States and China. It's less about that. It's more about how can we maintain the high level of deterrence against North Korea when the alliance is going to look, not away, but then have a new focus on deterring China in the region. So that's going to be Korea's first challenge. So I think the two sides are very much in discussion right now. But I think there's some preliminary agreement between the two sides about how South Korea's security posture will be towards China in the future, and then what will be the role of the U.S. forces in Korea in the same context. And so far, the United States and South Korea have agreed that the United States will respect the tacit agreement that we had with the United States back in 2006, where the status of the U.S. forces in Korea will be about North Korea primarily, but if there's going to be any change to the status of U.S. forces in Korea, it will only happen under the close consultation with Seoul. So that places essentially a limitation to the changes in the alliance, which actually essentially is an insurance policy for South Korea. So that's going to be one way to mitigate the potential risk of fundamental change in the security situation and architecture in this part of the world. But overall, I think United States means well through NSS. I think the United States wants to empower South Korea. This is the reason why South Korea and the United States have agreed that South Korea will be allowed to construct or build its own nuclear-propelled submarine. So it's going to give South Korea more strategic autonomy. And I think with more strategic autonomy, we more empowered South Korea. That's going to act as a deterrence effect on China. If China has a revisionist designs in this part of the world, they have to face not just a more powerful Japan, but also more powerful South Korea. And I think that's the key to maintaining stability in this region.
Mm-hmm. Then while that's ongoing, ties between North Korea and Russia are also deepening. In fact, but lately, the Russian ambassador to Pyongyang, who was key in deepening ties, actually passed away. So how would this latest event actually impact their growing cooperation moving forward?
Yeah, it's a pity because Ambassador Masegura is an old hand when it comes to Russia-North Korea relations, and then I think this is there's a concern that because it's passing, there will be some hiccups to the preparation for Kim Jong-un's return visit to Russia. That's expected to take place sometime next year, and the reason is because North Korea is a notoriously difficult partner to have some sort of a diplomatic engagement. So there is sudden change of heart. There's a last-minute cancellation on the part of North Korea. These are very idiosyncratic North Korean moves that even Russians have difficulties with. And the fact of the matter is that Ambassador Masegura was really a veteran when it comes to Russia-North Korea relations. He knew North Korea well because that's where the bulk of his career had taken place. So loss of such an experienced hand is going to be keenly felt on both Moscow and Pyongyang because he was essentially a very good intermediary between an interpreter of North Koreans' idiosyncrasies for the Russians. So his passing is going to be a major loss for the Russian diplomacy as well as for North Korea.
Right. His absence could really shake up more than just protocol, and we'll see how the ties develop in the future. But shifting gears, Dr. Barry, I know it's too early to read into this, but let's also touch upon Kim Joo-hye before we conclude. She reappeared after 3 months, and it's now showing more independent movement. Do you think this actually points to a step forward in their grooming as Kim Jong-un's successor?
Let me just quickly add a point about Ambassador Matsugora. Also, Foreign Minister Lavrov is sort of on the outs. And so that whole foreign policy apparatus that would deal with North Korea from the top down to the ambassador, and that is one of the toughest jobs you could possibly have. I met Matsugora's predecessor, Ambassador Timonin, back in 2005 in Moscow when he was one of the senior foreign ministry officials dealing with the Korean Peninsula. And Matsugora was there for much, much longer, and he was holding a lot together. So there's something very interesting. I don't know if it's foreboding, but the timing of this is quite interesting. But to your question about Kim Joo-hye, who knows? Does even Kim Jong-un know what he's going to do? But at least he's showcasing her, fashion and all, leather jackets and all, in a way to make the point to the world, if not to his own people, that there will be continuity, and the continuity will be with a member of his own family. But whether it ultimately is her, or whether, as a former unification minister from some administrations past had said not too long ago, he believes that there could very well be a son who, much like Kim Jong-un, is studying in Switzerland, I don't know if the same school, and is actually the one who's being prepared, lying in wait for the right moment. But Kim Jo-ae is the one that gets the media attention. And but look, I think she's only 13, but she certainly matured to the role, both in terms of emotional and personality, as well as her physical growth and so forth. But it's very hard to imagine a woman, and particularly a very young woman, being able to take on the role that Kim Jong-il did for his father, Kim Il-sung, or that Kim Jong-un did Kim Jong-un did for his father, Kim Jong-il. It's generally been a man's role, and there's usually been some period of preparation. At the same time, there could be all sorts of unknowable possibilities in the weeks and months and years ahead that are utterly unscripted, utterly unprecedented. And my concluding point would be that in the end, North Korea is likely to find that its best friend is not going to be Russia, is not going to be China, is not going to be Donald Trump in the United States. It's going to be the people of his own flesh and blood, the people of Korea. And the people south of the DMZ, of the 38th parallel, will be his most reliable partners. And that will be the bottom line for him. He has to be embraced by whatever administrations in power in South Korea, because in the end, it's the people under him that you are embracing. That's why President Trump is in a historic position to do something that's totally out of the box and somehow put the technical state of war on the Korean Peninsula. And so we have to hope that he'll be able to do that, hopefully sooner than later, because once we have the November 2026 midterms in the United States, he's going to be underwater and he's never probably going to resurface. He's going to be in trouble for the rest of his term.
Very important message to conclude our discussion here tonight. Thank you so much for your insights, Dr. Barry.
You're welcome.
And of course, Dr. Bo.
My pleasure.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame tonight. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Until then, stay informed and engaged.